What's up, everyone? Today we're going to be working on the 1946 HEMI drift truck, and I gotta say, this thing is spectacular. The longer we go, the more I wrench on it, the more I absolutely fall in love with it. This is probably going to be number 5 on my vehicles I will never sell, because this is going to be unique. It's going to be spectacular, and it's going to be just, oh, so much fun. Just take a look at that commanding engine. So I'm so glad you guys, when I put the poll out, should we use a Cummins or should we use the HEMI? You guys chose the HEMI Chrysler Firepower, and I'm so glad you guys did. This thing is just beautiful. It is a freaking piece of art, guys. So what is our goal for today? Our goal is to mock up the actual mounts themselves so that we can have this in the engine bay of the drift truck, so that we can start working on the suspension. Now, the reason why that is it kind of will get pretty close, and I want to make sure we're not, you know, painting ourselves into a corner, and it's very crucial. This is going to be one of the most crucial parts. So this also gives me a little bit of time to continue buying all the parts I need. Like I said, the connecting rods are around $750. We have a lot of money yet to get into all the engine parts. So this gives me a little bit of time to focus on what the engine's going in. So when this engine is all done, we can actually start having fun with it, guys. And obviously the bell housing on it is not the one we're going to be using. This is the one off of it when it pulled out of the 54 Imperial. So what we're going to end up having to do, the bell housing is going to be the same bell housing as I think the bell housing that we have for 832 will work with it. It's hard to say without the adapter plate that we're going to get, as well as the conversion kit. Once we get that, it will be mated up to a 833 transmission. And I think, guys, this is going to be, oh, so much fun. I'm so glad you guys chose this. So, as you can see, I am working on painting this thing. Obviously, with how much work we've put into the actual cab itself, and the new pieces of steel everywhere, it would have looked really funky with the what do you call it, the rust and the patina on it. So it had really nice patina, and I think it was chewed up on the bottom of it. But with how much we've put into this thing, we're going to go ahead, we're going to clean this thing completely up and put a beautiful coat of paint on it. And I think it will be just on point. And I'm teeter-tottering between 2 paint colors, so let's just stick with, this is obviously not the paint that is on it. This is just self-etching primer, and it does make it look pretty freaking awesome. So let's go ahead, scoot this inside the actual engine bay, and kind of get a little bit more of an idea what this is going to look like. As you guys can see, she's a tight fit, but actually a lot less than I was expecting. I thought she would have a little bit of a harder time. I thought that this would stick out of the engine bay. I don't know why I did, but yeah, she's like made for this truck. It's beautiful. I am going to change the way I did this. I'm going to cut the welds off and make this so it comes on and off a lot easier. Not that it needs to, but if I have to ever do something with the engine in the future, you know, it will make my life easier. So we'll adjust that, and we have to cut the firewall, which is actually a lot less cutting than I was expecting. I was expecting to cut substantially more out of it, but it looks like it's just going to be maybe a little bit into here, but most of it's going to be inside the actual little original well that it has. That's pretty cool. It's really cool. Now, ultimately, how far back it's going to sit, I want to have it as far back as I can, but I still want to be able to use the shifter and everything comfortably when it's all together. So that will actually mean we got to scoot over here, past this stuff here, and I actually think with the transmission, it would probably sit right about there. So if I can scoot that thing back, so the engine is possibly like maybe that far from the firewall, that would be fantastic. So I'm gonna go take some measurements of the transmission and get an idea where things are going to land and start cutting this beautiful firewall. So sad. But it is what it is, guys. You got to, you know, you got to commit, get the Sawzall out, grinder out, or whatever, and just, you know, start cutting. I found my center to the top, and I actually took a dust shield that was the same diameter that I need, and I just traced it out on here. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to take the line all the way around. Once this is removed, we'll see if we can't scoot the engine back a bit more, and if we need to take some more metal at that point, we will. But we don't want to go ahead and get a little too carried away. Little bites at a time. Once that's done, we'll take our unfortunately, I don't, 95% positive, you know, I haven't even checked yet, but I'm 95% positive the 833 transmission won't mount to this bell housing. But, yep, we're getting there, guys. I'm very excited. The other thing is, I don't know what I'm going to do with this thing right here. With all of the bits and pieces that are missing from this, I don't know, guys. It'll also save us a little bit of weight to get rid of a lot of the weight in there. So that might go away. I would hate to see it go away, but it's got a lot of rust going all throughout there, and this thing is so on the back side of it so far gone that I think our best move will be to do away with it. But the cool thing is, eventually we can put air conditioning in this truck. So if that's the case, I mean, we're already getting rid of the vent window. We might as well, you know, float the idea just for getting and repairing this cowl. As you can see, a lot of pitting. If we're going to do it right, you know, it's painful because I really like it, but I probably will never use it. And it's going to add a lot of, well, not a lot of weight, but, you know, weight adds up throughout this process. So, and like I said, I was already going to put AC on this, so the older I get, the more I like AC. You know, I'm from the land of ice and snow. I'm not good with heat, and I want to take this down on something like Power Tour someday. So yeah. And the other downside is fighting with this floor. As you can see, not the most level floor in the world. All right, let me go ahead and get my probably use a Sawzall and just cut it with a Sawzall and then grinder smooth. All right, I'll be back. If you're working on this kind of steel right here, real thin, very easy to cut through, and you have a radius you want to cut, I'm using one of those Bosch. Actually, I'll show you exactly which one I'm using. Not sponsored or anything. I've had it for woodworking. I bring it to job sites. You need to cut through a little bit of thin steel. This is the, let's see if I can't find the actual model number for you guys. This thing will make quick work of steel if you put a bimetal blade on. Or in this case, I put a light, or a medium, sorry, medium steel blade for cutting through that. They do make heavier gauge. But if you're cutting through heavier gauge, I would really recommend using just a Sawzall. This works great for the nice even radius. You know, it does kick a lot of crap up, so wear safety glasses. And even with safety glasses, I still got something in my eye. So yeah, there's that. Anyways, boom. It has landed. It gives us a lot of room to be able to put a little bit of taper in. So I want to have a nice smooth transition. And I'll make it out of just the same gauge steel. We'll just cut it, radius it out, and then we'll use that to fasten in the transmission tunnel. I want to be able to have the transmission tunnel removable so we can have easy access to things. Anywho, look at that, guys. Like it was meant to be. Yep. We'll scoot the engine out a little bit. And I gotta say, once again, like it was meant to be, Look at where our distributor is. Now look at that wonderful little right there. Like, come on, guys. Can't get much better than that. You just can't. Freaking awesome. Well, guys, today is another day, and I've been working on an engine crossmember design for a little while. And I've been moving the engine up and down probably fractions of an inch, trying to get it exactly where I want it. It's been a little bit lower, it's been a little bit higher, but I think we are just like the Goldilocks zone, just right here. And I gotta say, this engine looks like it was made for this engine bay. It's just absolutely perfect. It's not too big and it's not too small. Quite honestly, after seeing this thing inside here and comparing it to what the Chevy 350s look like, they just look like toys compared to it. Nothing wrong with the 350, but boy, I'll tell you what, this HEMI is definitely a different beast. So we still need to get this a little bit better aligned in the center, but once we actually have our engine crossmember, we'll set her down and it'll be perfect. Speaking of engine crossmember, boom, it's time to get serious. And we have ourselves some really high grade steel. This right here would be the same stuff you'd make a roll cage out of. But not Molly. Unfortunately, I can't get Molly around here. I'd like to do a Molly roll cage in here, but you know, we work with what we can get our hands on. And for $700, I can get all the material I'll need to do the roll cage, or hopefully the roll cage and all of the suspension. Because there's going to be a lot of tubing up front. But big update in the garage. Well, you may have just seen it there, but we'll go ahead and put you guys here. Whoop. There you go. And all I have to do is flip a switch, and now we have even more lighting in here. And on top of which, hold on a second. I've got one that goes inside the actual cab of the truck now. So we can go over here. And instead of trying to use the little flashlight like we did the other day, we have a nice view of what's going on. I also put some more inside where we're working on engines. So I know you guys like to be able to see what I'm working on. I like to see what I'm working on. All right, so the next thing, we got to do a few more measurements and come up with a final design for the engine crossmember. I think we have one of my designs actually puts it down a little bit lower than it needs to be. I think we're going to be able to do a much lighter bend. So all we have to do is avoid the actual oil pan. And the replacement oil pan that I'm looking at getting just has a larger sump area, so we don't have to worry about what's going on in the front. So let's go ahead and get back to work. Before we get back into it, one thing I like to do while working on cars, I don't really listen to the radio. What I do is I'll put channels like the Coastal Auto Reaction or Nick's Garage or Randy over at Auto Auction Rebuilds. I'll hit play and just listen to it run in the background. It's always great. They have great commentary and they're a riot to watch, and they have so much fun. So just if you're ever, you know, working on your car, just have a channel playing in the background. It's a good way of passing the time and, you know, keep your mind going while you're working. So that's what I'm going to do. Going to listen to the current video for today, and today is Christmas Eve, so it'll be fun because it's his Christmas special. So let's get back into it. I want to tighten up these engine mounts, start doing a few more measurements. I have a modification to my engine crossmember that I was planning on making, so you know, all we can do is get into it. Well, I gotta say, with great surprise in my mind, just kind of roughing where I wanted this engine, I am an eighth of an inch off, which is, that's still quite a bit, but for just stuffing it in there and kicking the bottom of this, I can't believe I came within an eighth of an inch. So what I have been doing today, unplug this and kind of scoot you over here, is I had two old engine mounts, one completely torn off and one that was used up. We have two new ones as well. All of these were donated to the channel by Matt, so big thank you, as well as these mounts right here. So again, a big thank you to Matt. You know, it's saving us a lot of money, all the stuff he's hooked us up with. I appreciate it so very much, man. And so we're an eighth of an inch off from our center point. Now I'm just using a plumb bob, using now this is sitting back a little bit further. I figured that out. But using a plumb bob, dragging it or hanging it down, it's the same distance on the actual engine itself from the center point, and we are within an eighth of an inch. So all we have to do is kind of pop this over a 16th, and we're going to be really happy. Now I'll just do that with the actual engine mounts itself. So here's our next thing we need to figure out. I have a rough sketch, actually, paste papers upstairs, but I did post it on the community page yesterday. This is a real rough sketch of what I was planning on doing based off of just trying to figure the loads on it. But that's it right there. Pretty straightforward. Focus. But yeah, anyways, what we're going to do next is measure how deep we have to go with the actual engine crossmember. It's not as deep as I was expecting, so that's not a big deal. It's just a matter of skirting underneath the oil pan enough that I'm not worried about it hitting it. I would like to keep it probably, now it's, yep, oh, you can't see, sorry. You have to think this is an 1 3/4 outer diameter pipe. We are going to try keeping it so the top of it is within an inch of the bottom of this right here. So let me go ahead and do a few more measurements. Once I'm done with that, I need to bring up my my measurements, my paper, and I scribbled it all down, but we'll take the measurements and paper and my basic drawing from before and refine it to our I guess our end plan right here. So, you know, the difference in the angles of the bend will change the load and how, you know, our dynamic forces. The big thing so the static forces, I have that pretty much sorted out. The only thing that I'm not really versed on for something like this is the dynamic forces. So going around the course, having the twisting on the frame, which we're going to try making this frame twist as little as possible, but it still have a little bit of twist in it. And the other dynamic forces of the engine pulling as you're revving, especially like a hard rev. So most of the actual, well, all of the static forces are all down. So you'll have the forces acting on the actual engine mounts, going to the frame, or the cross member, and then to the frame. So most of it's going to be forcing that direction, because you have the force coming down from the engine, but then the combined weight forcing it this way will actually be pulling from the frame rails. So that's why I added the little gussets, just to prevent any type of damage. Would I need it? Probably not, but I like to err on the side of caution. Better to need and not have, and have and not need. So wait, no, better to have and not need, and need and not have. I don't know what I said, but that's the general gist of that. So a few more measurements, bring it upstairs, and refine the kind of rough sketch to a final drawing. Well, today is the day after Christmas, and it's time for us to get back to work on this. Now, we've actually we've got a lot to do before this is all back together where we need it to be. And we're going to start with making the actual insides of the brackets that's going to sit on the frame rail. We're going to make that out of some pretty strong stuff. But this is what we came up with on Christmas Eve. This is just kind of a nice rough where things should land. Pretty straightforward bends, 30-degree bends on these. Now, This pipe will bend slightly different than the pipe I'm used to bending. The pipe I'm used to bending, of course, is conduit. So fortunately, when I bought the Eastwood bender, it does come with a cheat sheet for how you're going to have to go ahead and get the bends into it. So we're first, like I said, going to build a bracket, get the pipe bent, land it in there, cut what we're going to have to grind it at an angle so it fits properly against the frame rail. Once that's done, we'll weld it in there. We'll put the actual mounts that go to the cross member. Fortunately, I don't know if I said this yesterday, or sorry, the day before yesterday, but we have the old engine mounts from a small block Chrysler, 70s. Before we go into working on the pipe itself, we worked on this right here. This is going to be the mounting brackets that go around the actual frame. Now, as you can see, we use a little bit of layout glue, and unfortunately the can no longer sprays and won't even spray a little bit. So I went ahead, cut the can open, threw it in a jar because it's expensive, and if we don't have to buy more, we don't really need to. So hopefully this will work for us for a while. Now, this right here is 11 gauge steel laid out so that when we cut it here, 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 and here, it'll be nice and square. Then we'll fold them right along these lines right here, and that should give us a nice tight fit around the frame rails. I went ahead and drilled out 4 holes on either side, so it'll be 2 on each side. So we have both the bottom and top of the bracket being held on. Now, I was thinking about welding in this entire frame itself, but that's going to add quite a bit of weight, and I think because we're doing this cross member, that will actually help us out quite a bit, and we won't need to add the substantial amount of weight for the frame rails. Over here again, we're using 7/16 by 14. Same bolts I'm using for the actual engine mounts themselves. This will allow, uniformity. I hate when you're changing sockets out constantly, so I like to try to do as much uniformity as possible. And of course, grade 8 bolts. So I would like to have them black, but these are what we have down at my local store that I can get them. And maybe someday we can switch them out to black ones, but there it is. So next thing is getting this thing cut up, bend the pipe, fit it together. We're going to have to cut the pipe once it's in there at a bit of an angle. And then it's just a matter of welding it in or working on the actual engine mounts. Once the engine mounts are welded onto this, then we can do the individual brackets like you see right here. Now, I put arches in it. One, because that will actually help the load itself instead of a straight line. The curved line allows a little bit better distribution of the load. Also, it'll shave a little bit of weight. This is going to be fairly heavy, and we don't want it to be, we want to save weight where we can. Now, those brackets are going to be made out of this plate steel, which is about a 1/4 inch. So while I'm doing all the work on bending and getting this actual cross member set, today, because it's another day, I am actually watching Randy over at Auto Auction Rebuilds, his most recent walk-around video. If you do like walk-arounds and you really like Copart, definitely head over and have a look at his channel and hit that subscribe button. But I really enjoy walking around Copart. They're just really miserable right now, so it's a good way to go and walk around Copart without actually have to be in there. So I'm going to go ahead and continue listening to this while I'm working on this. And if you haven't already check out Randy over at Auto Auction Rebuilds. So it's not the easiest thing to do. It takes a lot of muscle, a lot of repetitive swings, but you get two fairly darn close brackets. So of course this is the top on both sides. They're a little bit... Here, let's go ahead and let's bring it over to the truck. Let's unplug this. Sorry for the noise, guys. Oh, come on now. There we go. So we head over to the frame here, and this is this side's. Nice. You go to this side here. Remember, big one is the top, little one is the bottom. Just not necessarily important that you do it that way. Just nice snug fit. Get it right where we want it. And nice. Whew. Now we just drill the holes. Once the holes are drilled, we'll go ahead and bolt these two in right so it all lines up to where the actual cross member needs to be. Then we take the cross member. Well, we have to bend the pipe yet. Once the pipe's bent, we have to mock it up pretty close to where it has to end up. Then we have to grind it at a slight angle. Make sure it fits as snug as a bug in a rug. And once that's done, we have to go ahead and weld it in. I mean, the cool thing about this, if the engine's not in, all we have to do is just slide her back a bit. And once you slide her back a bit, you can take this whole cross member out. But it will not go straight down, and it's going to be pretty hard to move this cross member. So my hope is the way we're designing this, it will not want to come free very easily. I don't want this engine falling down. And for the first few races, I might go ahead, just for tee-hee giggles, put a chain on the front right here, and we'll get like a little bit longer bolt, so we can bolt it there and have a chain link in the center of it, and then put a chain right to where this is, do the same exact thing, in the absolute off chance that the engine falls out. Not that I distrust my ability of doing this, but it's my first engine cross member, and I don't want to leave this thing on a track somewhere, so, you know, better safe than sorry. But yeah, I don't think we'll have that problem. Just, you know, I'm an overly abundantly cautious person, so anyways, I'm very happy with the fitment of these guys. Once they get bolted in, they'll be beautiful. A beautiful thing, guys. Beautiful thing. All right, next step. Let's get the pipe bent tight. I keep calling it pipe. Remember, I am an electrician, and as such, I work with piping. But the bending is a little different. You just have to, you know, be very cautious, because this is way more expensive than conduit. So hopefully we only have to do it once. And once it's done, this seemed a little bit redundant, but once it's done, we'll be able to turn around, weld her in there, make our little mounts here, and hopefully get her done by the end of the day. I hope that it only takes me another 5 hours of continuous labor, and then I'll make the plates another time. I think what's going to end up happening with the plates is this is substantially thicker stuff than what we were working for the brackets. So we will go ahead and probably bring it down to a place and see if they can't cut it out, because it's going to be very labor intensive for me to cut it out. So we'll have to do that for the cross member brackets as well as the braces on the back of the transmission. So, but we're making great progress, guys. Great progress. So let me get back to it, because I have a live a little bit later and I don't want to miss that. And I want this done by 4 then. All right. Hi-ho, hi-ho, off to work we go. Yeah, I've been going through a container of nuts and bolts, so I did have the table cleared off. You know, trying to find something, though, so forgive the mess there. As you can see here, though, we have the HEMI valves on here, and I gotta say, they did look horrible, and I still have a ton to do, and they are taking a long time to take care of them. But look at this, guys. So they are the original valves, and they are really good. So I'm polishing the combustion side. I'm not going to polish the other side, just the combustion side. And I'm not going to be able to do 100% because I'm not trying to take material off. So as you can see, this one still has a little bit of an imperfection right there. I don't want to take too much material off. They are cleaning up, which is going to save us quite a bit. Anyways, back to this thing right here. We have the pipe bender on there. And we got to go ahead and make ourselves one of, or our, hopefully, the only one, engine cross member for this truck. We have enough material to do it twice. And hopefully this is not a case or an instance of we do it nice because we do it twice. Hopefully it's only once. Anyways, let's go ahead, pop it on here. Like I've mentioned a few times, this doesn't bend the same way conduit does. So we have the little cheat sheet right here. This gives us, you have our mark. There's going to be a line past the mark, or actually back from the mark, so we get it, you know, where everything needs to be. So very important. Now it does say to try a few times with the material that you have on hand, but that 8-foot piece cost me nearly $100. So yeah, I don't really want to do it multiple times. I want to do it once. All right, let's have at it. Now, a lot of the pipe benders that we used for anything up to like 1.25 inches, in this situation, this is very thick wall compared to the old conduit. You get these little foot benders like that. That's for 3/4 inch. And that's what you use for, you know, your regular conduit. Oh yeah, that's very OSHA approved, by the way. They love it when you use zip ties to hold lead cords. I don't know what you're talking about. Anyways, so here's a few tricks that if you guys are trying to get into pipe bending that I've learned from working with the big toys that we have down at the shop for bending, you know, upwards of 6-inch rigid conduit. You're not doing that by foot power. You're definitely doing that with a hydraulic. We have electronic hydraulic ones made by Greenlee, and this is $500 for this jobber here. The ones we have down at our shop are, I should say the ones we have down at the shop are definitely in the, I think they start at like 3 or 4 grand. Unfortunately, the shoes and dies will not work for any automotive purpose, whether it's making exhaust or anything else. So yeah, currently also this is the biggest I can do with this particular unit here. I will need to find shoes and dies for 3-inch so we can do, I don't even know if we could do 3-inch honestly, but regardless, we'll try. So we can do exhaust bending and stuff like that. So this pretty much is just for the old, pretty much the biggest thing we can do actually currently is 1 3/4 inches, which is perfect, except for exhaust. Anyways, back to this. This is an interesting thing. So the ones that we use will actually give you calculations for whatever you're working on, whether it's EMT or rigid. This right here, they just say practice a few times, which is not really a good science, especially when an 8-foot length of this is not cheap. As I said, it's crazy how expensive just an 8-foot piece of this is. So you can't really sit there and go through 10-foot length of it trying to your bends. You're going to go out of money. You and I are working on shoestring budgets, so we need to make every inch count. So here's a trick we learned from, or I've learned using the Greenlee stuff. They give you all the measurements so you can get it done. But if you're trying to repeat a bend, say you're running on the wall or something like that, and you want all your pipes to be bent the same way so it looks really, really nice. Well, cue the most important part. Up here, we have our hydraulic piston, and that right there is going to actually be what we're going to measure. We're going to take a really nice, the finer the better. I think the real fine one I have is a little bit too short, but when we're out in the field working on, you know, pipes for like conduit, we just use a tape measure. But we want to be fairly accurate at this thing, so we're going to use not metric. There we go. We're going to use the fancy side, put it on here and look and see that from that point right there to where it is above it. Take a look right in there, and you're going to measure that exact focus. All right, it's not going to focus. So whatever your tape measure or ruler, or if you have something a little bit there it is, you get a little bit more fine of a jobber like this guy right here. Actually no, we can use this one. Okay, so we can use this one, but whatever you're doing, you take and you put the exact same bend in it. And you get the exact same bend by measuring how much your piston has been driven up. And that will actually give you, when you're all said and done, a symmetrical, almost said asymmetrical, a symmetrical pipe. And that's very, very important what we're doing here. So next step, we measure from our center point. Well, we already did measure from our center point to center point. And we have to cut about a foot off from the center point on this side. And that will actually give me a foot worth of room. And that will allow me to not only shave it this way, but this way. And still, you know, we'll probably have to take little tiny bites as we go. So it fits very, very snug in the final position in the actual truck. Sorry if I'm shaking you guys, didn't mean to. So yeah, if you're trying to reproduce your bend, your easiest way is get one of the more accurate measuring implements you have, and you're going to slap her on there like this. You're going to make sure she's nice and flat to get as nice, and make sure you mark where you're measuring from. I have to do that yet. I haven't done that on here. And that way, every time you make a bend, you can make an identical bend every time. And when you're trying to make a symmetrical cross member like this, it's very important that you get it right. So if this is not exactly 30 degrees, and they wanted you to, I'm actually really disappointed it didn't come with some type of way of measuring this. Like, I have to be fair, I am used to using a lot more expensive devices than this for doing a similar application. Just unfortunately, like I said, none of our stuff works for this. So this was my budget-friendly $500 pipe bender, or sorry, tubing bender. And it does a great job. I mean, I would love to upgrade this so I could use an electric hydraulic pump so I don't have to fight with it. But yeah, that's as best I can tell is 30 degrees. I'll take it out and we'll double check. Here's the other thing. Once you take it out of the shoe, you're never going to get it back 100%. So be confident in where you are, so that next time it's not going to, there is no next time. It is what it is. If it's wrong, you're cutting it off. Also, something that's not mentioned in the instructions here is spring back. So maybe they already took an account for the spring back on here. So for example, when I'm running something on the Green Lee, I know that there's spring backs. So I make sure that I go, depending on what kind of pipe I'm using, X amount of distance past my 30 degree mark, or 45 degree, or 90 degree, so that when I release it, the hydraulic pressure, what will happen is it will spring back the steel and you're good to go. So that's very important. All right, so let me go ahead, break this apart, and move along. As you can see, Rich was just over here. Now, Rich is also Gizmo on the interweb. And I was just showing him how I bend pipe, like when I was, like I was saying, how you do your measurement. And there's a few things I would really like to, I'm going to take the this wonderful powder coating they have on here. I'm going to take it off on this side, weld a bracket that's like here, probably continue the little line, and then go straight down and then back. And then I'm going to drill a hole through here, so that I can use, so I can put this pin into here without having to pull the pipe out to be able to fit it, because that's just frustrating. But yeah, the pipe came out fantastic. It's 3.5 inches. If I took the speed square, put it on the flat surface straight up, spun it around, did the same thing. I don't know if you can tell that in the time lapse, but we have it just right. And then setting it down on a flat surface, there is no deflection in the pipe, so it is square or true, whatever you want to call it. And if you come over here, you should see that there's about 2 inches of excess on both sides, which is by design. Let's see. Yeah, I would say about 2 inches. And the reason why I did 2 inches is it will allow me to cut and grind. I don't mind losing a total of 4 inches of this pipe if you know, it gets me where I need to be. So it's easier to do that than try to turn around and get the, you know, do it over again, you know, especially when you get it right the first time. So the next thing is we got to drop it down. I want about a 1/2 inch between the base of this and the oil pan on this. Then we'll start working on the brackets. So I was hoping to get it done today. It doesn't look like it's going to be today though. It looks like it's probably going to be a tomorrow finishing project. So we will not get the V10 pulled apart as of tomorrow. But if I can at least get this thing spot welded on here tonight and then line it all up, we can finish it tomorrow, and that would be fantastic. This is a big part of this build, because eventually this all has to come apart, because on that side we have to trim it up a bit so we can fit our steering system. The steering rack kind of literally tries to take up the same place as the end of the frame rail. So we'll scoot that out of there, and I have to go ahead and cut these so that I can change this up a little bit. I think it's actually sitting a little bit too low. So whoever did these brackets, I think it's off kilter a little. I shouldn't have trusted the brackets. I should have done it myself, but you know, you live and learn. I keep learning that don't trust other people's work. You know, that's all we can ever do. So anyways, let's go ahead. We'll finalize where these need to be. And then I'm going to go ahead and pluck the engine back out so I can put this in place and then mark how the cut has to be. And then so when I'm done with the lining up the cut, I'm going to cut about a good, I'll probably go 1/4 inch past my mark. That way I can just grind it, fit it real snug, and then we'll chamfer the edges so we have a nice weld on this. Now we used an actual pipe cutter for this, which is, it leaves a really dangerous burr. So if you're ever doing that, remember this will not be fun. Normally, like, we have a rigid pipe cutter at the shop. It's mechanical or electrical, and it just spins it around, and we ream that out with this weird little pyramid thing, and that pipe reamer will leave a nice clean edge. I mean, this was a nice way of doing it without having to use a grinder on it. We will end up having to use a grinder in the long run, but I think I've had enough grinding for one day. I say that now. We'll be right back grinding in just a few minutes. So, okay, let me finalize where these need to be. I'm going to go ahead, drill them, and then once these are, I'm going to just do the tops for now. Once these are drilled out and I put a bolt through it, we'll go ahead and take the engine out of the way, drop that in like I was saying, and get to work. The biggest downside of my garage floor is whoever poured it must have been their very first garage, because they poured it with a steep enough grade to ski down it. So trying to pull the engine out, it was the whole lift wanted to go this way, which is, you know, cool. Not real cool, but cool. So, yay! Next part. We have these lined up exactly where they need to be. As far as my measurements go, from the base or the back of the actual engine plate right here to the engine mounts, they're exactly the same distance. So boom, slide it in there, and we should be golden. So next step, let's drill some holes. Now that we have this thing pretty close to where we need it to be, and by pretty close, I mean, hopefully it's pretty darn close, we need to go ahead and start putting some tack welds in. We don't want to make it its final location quite yet, because we're not quite there. But once we're happy with where everything will be, we'll put all the welds in. So not until it's in its final shape shall we finish all of the welds. So hopefully we have a good grounding spot. We'll sneak inside here, and we'll lay some preliminary welds in here. Don't need half of the stuff in here with me, but oh, I should probably grab my ruler. Do we have one right here? Or, of course not. So we want it to be the same height on both sides. So get this down out of my way a bit. Alrighty then. First, try to get this thing in the center. This only fits perfectly one way. That way. All right. Stop fighting me. That'd be wonderful. Gotta love it. It's gotta fight you. Unfortunately, I don't think we'll just go ahead and do this in fast forward mode. It would appear that the GoPro decided to die on me, or actually not die so much as run out of space on the SD card. But it is in. I kicked it out. It's a real tight fit. I kicked it out and was able to get the welds all the way done on it. So this is permanent. She lines up exactly where we want it to be. She's a beautiful thing, guys. Next, we got to go ahead and I'm going to take the bell housing off of this for now, because now we can go ahead and bolt it on through there. And I've been looking at it, and I was hoping to be able to make it so we can either pull the engine or transmission out separately. So if we need to pull the transmission out, we wouldn't have to take the engine out. And if we needed to pull the engine, we wouldn't have to take the transmission out. But based off of what I have as an option here, it looks like what we're going to be able to do is just make it so that if we have to take the transmission out, we don't have to worry about dismantling anything off the engine. We can just pop the transmission. And if we need to take the engine out, we'll have to just drop the transmission, then pop the engine. So not a big deal. It's going to be more convenient, because I think the only thing we'll ever really, hopefully, have to worry about is the actual transmission. So let's go ahead. I'm going to take the bell housing off for now, because that makes it a lot easier to just go ahead and stuff it in there. It's only held in by, well, actually more bolts than I was thinking. But and then we are going to drop it in there, mock up the engine mounts going onto here. And once this is all done, we'll go ahead and put the bell housing back on and go ahead and get a bracket made up for it. But sorry that stopped working on us, but sometimes that happens. I try to be a little bit more tentative about our situation. This is actually the third SD card for this project, so yeah, this is going to be a long one. Also, What was I going to say? We are going to do a 3-degree angle of the engine as far as its setback. That will allow the oil to pool a little bit better in the back of the oil pan and hopefully reduce a little bit of windage. We also have to make a windage tray for this at some point, which will be fun. We'll cover that when we get to that point, though. That's going to be interesting. I've never made a windage tray. Normally, like the LS engines, you know, it comes with a windage tray right in it. So it'd be really cool to be able to use one of these or mock up one of these into, not mock up, but use it as a template, rather, for this one right here. But, all right, go! So the next step is to actually make the mounts themselves, and as you can see, I've been working back and forth trying to get it just right, and I think when we get the engine just where it needs to be, this is what we are looking for. So I'm going to replicate this, get one more, and everything is actually symmetrical on this engine, which is great. And once we do that, we'll be able to throw that on there and a few tacks. Now this is all welded up, but these are just going to get tacked, and then we're going to tack on all the plates. Once the plates are where we want them to be, then we'll go ahead and weld up everything. And we should be all set at that point. Let's go ahead. I'm actually very pleased with the hole saw notcher here. It's not bad at all. All right, nothing to it but to do it. Now that we have them tapped, it's all about the, now if you notice, I put a piece of the polyurethane inside here, and that's mostly just so we have a sacrificial amount of our end product in there. That way we know that our height is right. It's that 1/4 of an inch. Might as well be a mile away. So we're gonna pop this out and see what happens. Those tacks should hold no problem. Once they're out, then I'll go ahead and make the plates, weld this all up, and then this front mount is all set. If I can get this washer out here. Come on. There we go. Put that somewhere safe. I'll probably knock it over anyways, but at least I tried, right? All right, last bolt right here. I did accidentally put a tap in the center there, or a tack in the center. I didn't mean to. It's just kind of like natural habit. So I'll have to grind that out of the way. So that's where my one of my plates are going to go. I shouldn't be wearing my nice welding gloves for this. Take those off. I got a nice pair of not so nice ones for grinding and all that fun stuff, which I probably should just go get another set of welding gloves. But hey, you know, I like to live dangerously. Come on. There we go. And there goes. Let's see what happens here. This will also allow me to make sure that they went up straight, up and down, you know. It's back out and it fits perfectly. You have to give a quick little tug one direction and it spins completely out. And then I gotta say, I'm really digging the way this is coming out. I need to work on my welds at weird angles, but so far all the weld penetrations look great. As you can see, we have some cardboard in my hand. This right here is the plates going right here, here, and here. This one I still need to trim a little bit so it's so it'll fit properly. She's pretty close, but you know what they say about being close. And once that's done, we'll be able to go ahead and finish all the welds. I'll do it outside of the actual engine bay so I can get better welds and then just these nasty tacks. I was worried about if I just did basic tacks that when I pulled the engine up it would turn it out of position, so I put a little bit more than I normally would. So let's go ahead and get working on this thing so we can get the plates on the back of the engine done as well today. That way we have an engine sitting in a bay, and I love the sound of that. All right, let's get down. Well guys, as you can see, I could definitely use a little bit more practice with that welder, but I'd like to get this thing sandblasted at some point, probably get everything done and then put it on a pallet and bring it down to my buddy and get this thing all ready to, you know, repainted and beautiful. But until then, I want to protect it, so we're going to throw some self-etching primer on it, and at least that will prevent it from rusting. Go through a lot of work to get this beautiful thing all together just to throw a you know, a coat of rust on it. Nah, that's not sounding too fun to me. But we have well, let me paint it and then we'll come back to it. Well guys, I did go ahead and burn through another lens today, but I think it was well worth it. We'll see what kind of footage I got. And unfortunately we didn't get the back brace done, but just take a look at that, guys. Oh, it's perfect. I love it. That's just about, you couldn't get any better. That's, oh. And the greatest part is, if you look at the 350s that a lot of people put in here, just Google 1946 Chevy hot rod, and you'll all see the 350s, and the engines look like little Matchbox engines. This thing fills out that engine bay right to the absolute max. Absolutely freaking awesome, guys. Now, there are a few things I need to do with the hood, because the hood usually has a little side piece on it. It gets stiffened by that. We'll have to put some stiffening rods or something to stiffen it up through here. And look at that, guys. Hold on a second. Need a little bit more. One more time. One more time. Oh yeah, we're definitely gonna have to keep that. We'll just set that off to the side like so. I love it, guys. It was like this thing was just made for this truck. Oh, like a kid in a candy store. This thing is just gonna be, oh, so awesome. So very awesome, guys. Now, I do need to go ahead and put the back brace on it, put the belt housing on it and stuff like that. And I think, actually, my neighbor came by, great guy. He was actually over here helping cutting the some of the brackets, and I mean, Rich is just like a lifesaver, but he had a really good idea. So I have a router, and if I take a carbide bit, and when we get the adapter plate, we could take the adapter plate and I can grind it on my router table and just take enough material out where the bell housing would meet, or the adapter would meet the back of the engine, and just enough to be able to stick the plate inside and not have to have it sitting outright. And I was also thinking, if I want to pull the engine with the transmission left inside there, all I'd have to do is just put a piece of plywood underneath it and just hold the transmission up while we pull the engine, and we wouldn't have to take the transmission out. So I think that'll be fine. But guys, oh, this Crossmember came out really, really nice. And I'm by no means the best welder in the world, but this is better welding than a lot of the Crossmembers I've gotten for other projects. Pre-made. I love it, guys. This thing is fantastic. Just take a look. Just take a look, guys. She's beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. Fantastic. Now, I am going to take all of these parts back off eventually and then have them all sandblasted, and then we'll go ahead and repaint them all. But for now, I think I already said this, but for now we're going to go ahead and paint everything we put on it so that it, you know, it doesn't rust. Putting a lot of effort into this truck. We want to make sure it stays. Just look at this engine, just fills this engine bay up perfect. It's not too big. It's, oh, and it's just going to look beautiful. Oh, so menacing. Something fantastic is going to be born here. Oh, this is crazy awesome. And I really, really, come on, guys. You know what we probably do is we probably just put a rod right down through where the hinge used to be and just put a couple tack welds. That probably would stiffen that right up. But I've always loved these old vehicles that hinged in the center. There's just something about it. Oh, this thing looks just so perfect. All right, guys, on that not disappointment, this is fantastic. Yeah. If you like this content, please don't forget to hit that subscribe button, hit that thumbs up. I do appreciate you all so very much. We're gonna go ahead and go have a beverage and hang out for a bit, because this was a long day. It was awesome though, well worth it. Well, several days went into this. All right, guys, you have yourselves a wonderful day. Remember, keep your shiny side up, and as always, God bless.